I don't think Cal is as good as they were a year ago.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining me today, the host of Locked On ACC, Alex Donno. I got to talk to somebody about Cal, and it felt weird reaching out to you, the ACC guy. But yes, Cal is, in fact, an ACC team. And Donno, you and I were talking before we clicked record. They did not look good. Cal, no. Auburn's next opponent, did not look good against UC Davis.
You know, there are certain teams that hit the ground running week 0 and week 1. A lot of teams in the ACC did not do that. Now, the other team that I covered, the Miami Hurricanes, did hit the ground running. Obviously, Florida State has not. Clemson certainly didn't. And, you know, Cal going up against lesser opposition in this one against the UC Davis Aggies. They got off to a slow start in that game, Zach. They were trailing early in that game. Then, of course, Cal's superior talent just ended up taking over. I'm not overly impressed with their quarterback play. And sometimes you say this, when you have two quarterbacks, you don't really have a quarterback. Fernando Mendoza, who is a South Florida native, got most of the work as you would expect him to do and start throughout the year. Chandler Rogers, who's got tons of athleticism, also got some work, but just very sloppy. And then the best player on the Cal Golden Bears is one that my understanding is he should be good to go for the trip to Auburn. And I know Hugh Freeze mentioned he's going to prepare as if Jaydn Ott is good to go, but he got banged up and he left that game. I believe it was in the third quarter against UC Davis. And of course, Ott is the one who provided the bulletin board material a year ago, talking a little trash about Auburn. I think he's taken a more of a measured approach this time around, but we don't know for sure. I expect him to play, but is he going to be at full strength and full health?
Yeah, he got hurt against Auburn last year after he kind of said all those things. And, he said Auburn was just a name or whatever. And look, Auburn, I think last year, they weren't as good as they are this year. Auburn has just totally revamped their roster. And to me, I don't think Cal has done that. They had a really good transfer portal class, if I'm not mistaken. And they had done that the year prior too, which I think is why so many folks picked Cal to upset Auburn last year. But to me, all of the stuff we said about this matchup a year ago, where, okay, they're kicking off at 9:00 Central Time, the time that Auburn's used to playing, that's a factor. And then obviously traveling across the country, that's not it anymore. Cal's coming here. Cal's got to travel so many miles this season. It's insane with with their situation in the ACC. But to me, all the things that pointed Cal's direction last year are now pointing Auburn's direction this year. And I think Auburn's a better roster than they were a season ago. And I don't think Cal is, by the way.
Yeah, that's one of the big things that I look at trending into this matchup is that I think Auburn's improved a lot more than Cal has. Cal, you're relying on a lot of the same pieces. I will say one thing to Cal's credit, and I had a chance to learn a lot about them a few weeks ago on Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I were joined by a celebrity Cal superfan, Lawrence Ross, and I went back and I watched some of the tape from last year, and it matches up. Cal is one of those teams that tends to play up and down to the competition. They're going to lose a few games that how did that happen? And then maybe they're going to get one signature win this season. Now, they may say that signature win could be Auburn. I'm not so sure about that, but it tends to be one of those sort of herky-jerky Jekyll and Hyde teams that will rise and fall to the occasion. But what you mentioned about the travel miles, Cal, not too surprisingly, it had to be either them or Stanford, is going to be leading the entire Power Four, probably the entire country in travel miles this year. They travel over 20,000 miles. And so, they were able to play that UC Davis game last week in the comfort of their own homes and in their own stadium. And they're going to be heading to Auburn. They're going to be making a lot of trips out east this year. I had a chance to talk to some Cal players at ACC Media Days preseason. They very much downplayed the travel thing, but I've got to think it's going to be a factor, but certainly more of a factor later in the year because this will be their first road trip of the year.
I also wonder, Cal, it's a comfortable temperature in California, and it can get warm, but it's different than Alabama heat, the state of Florida heat. I mean, with what they're going to be playing against in the ACC, like I do wonder how that comes into effect. And that was a big thing that I talked to several media folks about last week. Was you want it as hot as possible when they come here, and I'm like, and it's going to be a comfortable 80 degrees, but I don't think Auburn needs weather to beat Cal on Saturday. Like I don't think that's the mismatch that you need to beat Cal.
No, I mean, a Rock and Jordan Hare Stadium and more talent should be what you need to beat Cal. And this is expectations for a Cal team. Like they're generally being picked bottom half of the ACC this year. So, you got to wonder. But like you were saying, I don't think this is a team that's gotten appreciably better from last year. Like I look at some of the other teams entering the ACC. I mean, Stanford, it's always tough for the transfer portal stuff there because the academic standards are so high. They're very high at Cal as well. But I look at a team like SMU, and they didn't look great their opening game either. They had to really struggle to grind out a victory against lesser opposition. But that's a team that hit the transfer portal super hard. They just set a record for athletic fundraising. I don't see that happening in Cal or Stanford. In fact, I know Cal has had some debt trouble over there that they're probably trying to address some of those things first before it really goes into football. So I think this is going to be, they managed to make it interesting in Northern California last year. I don't really expect Cal to put up too much of a fight in this one.
Yeah, I want to ask you, okay, if Cal's going to pull this off, who needs to step up? What do they need to do? That's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at our favorite mobile app, Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Yes, look, I got to tell you, it's an amazing game, and you get to step into the shoes of a head coach. If you loved beating Alabama A&M by 70 points, download Ultimate College Football Head Coach, manage that team, and you can win. That's what it felt like. It felt like a video game. And obviously, this game is super immersive. You get to do the scouting and the recruiting, and you get to call the offensive plays. And it's also completely free, and it has no ads, and it's 100% playable offline, so you can play it on the go. And we've got a special offer for you. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all one word, all caps, LOCKEDONCFB, and you get a free boost to your program. Little NIL action. Let's just act like it's that. Make sure to take advantage of this perk, and you'll get your team off to a strong start. Download the game by just going to ultimate-cfb.com, or you can just search Ultimate College Football Head Coach in your phone's app store. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. We love our friends at 5 Hour Energy. It gives you that boost after lunch. And I've started recently working out again in the morning, and I tell you what, early afternoons, it starts to wear on you a little bit. You need a little bit of that kick. 5 Hour Energy has you covered with zero sugar and a convenient portable size. It's a perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Also, you can go to their website, and you've got the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack and choose the flavors that you like. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5hourenergy.com. Use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. That's at 5hourenergy.com. Alex Donno, host of Locked On ACC. Be sure to make them your second listen this week so you can kind of get a feel for everything that's happening in the Auburn side of college football as far as their opponents go. Donno, if Cal's going to come to Jaydn Ott Stadium and pull this off, what happens? What did Cal do to create a mismatch against the Tigers?
I think it's a really simple formula to me. The most important thing would be Cal needs to play a clean game in the turnover standpoint, and they've got to win the turnover margin, probably +2 or +3 to have a legit chance in this one. And that means, to me, maybe focusing on Fernando Mendoza as the primary quarterback. If you switch quarterbacks too much, it could get herky-jerky. He's off to a turnover-free start so far this season. And Jayden Ott needs to be healthy. And again, like the indications we get is he probably is, but anytime a guy leaves a game hurt, you always wonder about that. And I think not only does Ott need to be a factor on the ground, but I think Ott needs to be a factor in the receiving game. He's a really shifty, quick back. I think Jayden Ott's got to score a couple of touchdowns, including in the receiving game. And then I wonder, because I hear a lot of buzz about, Cal's defense being improved from last year. They're going to have a huge test coming up, and that's where the takeaways come in, Zach. They've got to generate some of those this week. And so, some of the faces you're going to be looking at on that Cal defense, Teddy Buchanan with 9 tackles last week, Xavier Carlton with 5 tackles. And how many sacks did they produced 3 sacks last week against UC Davis. It's going to be tough to do that against Auburn. But to me, takeaways and Jaydn Ott are the keys.
Yeah. The Ott situation, I do think, is interesting. I mean, it's an ankle, right? It appears to be an ankle situation. You just never know. Like, sometimes those just stick around for a long time, and there's only so much you can do about it. So that'll be intriguing. Do you think, do you think, even though we said it over a year ago, the comments that he made before the Auburn game last year, do you think they're still playing those internally? Do you think that there's no expiration date on that? Is there?
I know they are, because earlier today, when I was trying to find as much intel as possible about Jaydn Ott's health, and I type his name into YouTube, the first thing that came up was a YouTube short from a year ago, talking about how with Auburn, the film doesn't match the name, which is the bulletin board material we were referring to. So this is one of those things, just based on the YouTube algorithm. If that's the first thing that popped up when you search Jaydn Ott's name, people must still be talking about that. And again, I feel like Cal has taken a much more measured approach. I was watching the comments that their head coach Justin Wilcox was making, and obviously very respectful of Auburn. I didn't hear anything that came out of their players' mouths that would sound like they're underselling their opponent. But I do think that what he said last year is something that's still going to get recycled this year, as if he said it yesterday.
So the line opened on FanDuel, our friends at FanDuel, at 10.5. It is then shifted. I believe it's 14.5 now. It's pretty substantial, Donno.
Yeah.
You agree with that? You think Auburn covers? Where are you thinking on this?
I guess so, but I will say, as a struggling sports bettor, these first 2 weeks of the college football season, a lot of the big spreads have been covered early on. So I don't know. I feel like some of these double-digit spreads, anytime I go with a favorite, it hasn't seemed to go my way. But that line moving in Auburn's direct, I would have been a lot more comfortable with it at 10.5 than 14.5, just as a matter of principle. If I'm taking,
it's 13.5 on FanDuel.
13.5.
I want to be correct.
Still, I would have felt more comfortable. They should be able to cover that, and there's a reason why the line has moved, because Auburn took care of business against lesser opposition week 1. Cal, all you can really say is they got the win week 1. It was a sluggish start, but again, like a couple of factors that I keep in mind here. Cal playing up and down to the level of competition. They did keep it close last season. So maybe that gives them some motivation, like we can hang with these guys. But I think if you're going to make a play on this, the smart money is probably minus 13.5 Auburn.
Yeah, I think so. And you get a full 2 touchdowns there. 2 touchdowns do it. The 14.5 is a little interesting because you need a little bit more. So 13.5, I like a ton. No question about it. No question about it. Donno, just real quick while I've got you, you're decked out of Miami stuff. Would you rather take a dig at Florida or FSU? Just real quick.
FSU. It's unfathomable how they can go from consensus favorites to repeat as conference champs to now they've got a quarterback who can't throw, and they've got a defensive line that was billed as the best in the country preseason.
Yikes.
And they don't look like they want to be there.
Yikes.
It's crazy to me what's going on at Florida State, because, okay, they lost to Georgia Tech in Dublin. You can wonder, okay, maybe how good is Georgia Tech? How much of that is a fluke? And no disrespect to Georgia Tech or Boston College, but when you lose 2 games in a row, neither of them true road games, by the way, one of them a home game, one in Dublin, you lose 2 games in a row to teams that you were double-digit 2 touchdown plus favorites against. The common denominator is Florida State. I don't know what happened to them. I guess Jordan Travis was even more valuable than we realized he was last year, but this has been a hard fall from grace.
Yeah, it's been brutal to watch. I've loved it. It's been brutal for FSU, I guess. So we'll see. Hey, be sure to check out Alex Donno and Kenton Gibbs, Locked On ACC. Alex also hosts Locked On Canes. Be sure to make one of those your second listen later today. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.